Alright, so today I want to talk about Bucca. Now you may not have heard the term Bucca for this particular spirit, but we'll get into it. This is the same thing as Puck or Pucca that I actually personally call Pan. So let's have a look at that, shall we? Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay, before I actually get into that bit, I just want to mention there's a couple of things I'm doing. Oh, and Happy New Year, by the way. It is the new year after all. So first of all, the supporter membership, which is $2.99 a month. I'm adding a few extra things from now on. I used to do the Moon Day video, which was kind of like a view of the coming week or the coming new moon phase, and the influences it may have, and things to look out for, and things you could do in your magic, and etc. So that I took away, but it did seem to be missed. So I've included it as I'm going to do a text post, probably once a week. Obviously depends on how the moon phases progress. That will be in the members only for the supporters and above, obviously. So if you do want to get that, then just sign up for the supporter membership, which is, as I said, $2.99 a month. I'll probably add some additional stuff as I continue, maybe path workings and things like that, but I'll see how that goes anyway. But that's in there now, so if you'd like to join. And there's a few things on my website. The services are still on special for 20% off before I officially put the prices up. The prices are going to go up, and they'll probably stay that price for a couple of years at least. So if you do want to take advantage of that, hop on over to my website, go to services, and you'll see all the different services. Candle spells, sigil crafting, consultations, energy healing, doing attunements, etc, etc, etc. Alright. Now, Bucca. So Bucca is a very interesting character. And this actually, the whole topic of this actually came up because I'm rereading Gemma Gary's Traditional Witchcraft, Cornish Book of Ways, it's called. Excellent book, love it. But there's a whole chapter on Bucca, and I think the reason why this chapter itself becomes so important is because we often talk about the dualities and bringing those dualities into balance. And I'll read a section from it just now, but Gemma Gary also mentions that whole balance and aspect seems to have been misplaced somewhere along the line, and people aren't really considering it much anymore, whereas at one stage it was a huge thing. So this is basically Bucca, and this is why Bucca is I think is so important, because we talk about Pucca, we talk about Puck, and we talk about Pan, and we talk about Baphomet, but we don't really focus on the androgynous hermaphroditic aspect, the inclusion of all things. Usually we do when we consider Baphomet, because there is the inclusion of all things, but Pan itself means all. And this is why I like to use the term, or the word Pan, the name Pan, when I'm referring to the god that I actually follow and worship, instead of using Baphomet or Puck or Pucca, but you know, for me, you know, some people may disagree. They may say that all of these entities are separate beings, but for me, they are all the same aspect, all the same being. And Pan, because it means all, just envelops that whole thing for me. But this chapter on Bucca becomes very important, because when we look at Bucca and the lore behind Bucca itself, we find that there's a duality. There is Bucca Guida and Bucca Du. Now, just make sure I get this right. Bucca Guida is the dark aspect, and Bucca Du is the light aspect. So we have this duality, and Bucca Guida is usually celebrated during the dark half of the year, and Bucca Du during the light half of the year. And the light, or the access point to these two halves, is between May Day and All Hallows Eve, or Samhain, Beltane and Samhain. We'll call them different things. In Cornwall, they call it May Eve and Allantide. But it is that Beltane and Samhain axis that kind of splits the year into two, so we get the light half and the dark half. So that's Bucca Guida for the light half, Bucca Du for the dark half. Now, what's interesting here is I'll get into it again when I read it, but we have this duality, life and death, dark and light, and all of these things. But when we bring them together, we find that they are the same thing. Life is death, death is life. You know, it's not a breaking point of, you know, we come into life and then we have death and that's it. They flow into each other. So after death, it's just a walk through the door in order to continue that process. Light and dark, same thing. You know, we have light within the darkness. We have darkness within the light. We have the morning star and the evening star. We have day and we have night. We can't have one without the other. But it's a cycle, and that cycle continues. So light becomes dark and dark becomes light. Anyway, let me read what is said in here, because it's actually put so perfectly. Oh, sorry, before I do that. So Bucca Guida and Bucca Du actually come together to form, or to create a balance and a union in Bucca Gam. And this is an androgynous being. It's hermaphroditic. It is that aspect of bringing the two dualities together in order to unite them and create a whole. And in this, we see this very specifically in Baphomet. And I do think a lot of us have moved away from that aspect, that representation, that symbolism, and forgotten about it, even though it is still there. You know, Baphomet is pictured with a goat head, goat legs, has breasts, but has a human body, a human torso, but has female breasts, has an erect phallus. In the original depictions, a lot of depictions, it's usually caduceus instead of a phallus or a penis. But that is the symbolism behind that. But there are other aspects. There is reptilian, there is avian. Is it avian? A bird, yeah, flying things. And it actually represents all things. So reptiles, birds, fish, human, mammal, goats, all animals, all beings, man and beast, everything, but also the duality, the coming together, the union of the genders, the sexes. I hope I'm saying that right. So we have that androgynous hermaphroditic union, that being which is both both and everything and all. And it's beautifully represented in Baphomet, but as I say, I think a lot of people are forgetting about that. There was that satanic temple that created the statue of Baphomet with 2 children to put up, and I understand why they did it, because viewing breasts in public is apparently a bad thing, so they had to remove the breasts and give it a masculine chest, which is a bit of a pity, but that's how the world is. Alright, anyway, let me read this. So, here we may ultimately find in Bucca a mystic triplicity, for Bucca Guida and Bucca Du conjoin in Bucca Gam. The Grand Bucca and the great horned Androgyne, the Sabbatic goat and goddess god of the witch way. For some, the Grand Bucca is simply referred to as Bucca, being the whole, with the 2 opposing aspects of that whole being given the distinction of Bucca Guida and Bucca Du. In Bucca, we find the resolving of all opposites, the traditional candle betwixt the horns symbolizing the light of all wisdom, and the mystic state of one-pointedness, which is the ultimate goal of the witch, and is the light that illumines the cunning path. This state is achieved by the process of resolving all opposites within to become balanced and whole, rather than polarizing and separating opposites, sticking them firmly at either end of an enormous imaginary pole, as has become the practice in some modern forms of the craft. The Peller will seek inwardly in their rites to become both female and male, dark and light, below and above, and so forth in an act of inner alchemy. To embody this is a huge task, and is literally to seek to become as the gods, but nevertheless to walk the path of the cunning is to strive ever towards the light of wisdom betwixt the horns of oppose. The androgyne of the wise, the rebus, double matter, and hermaphrodite are well known to alchemy, where transcendence of gender and the resolving of opposites are taught in the search for the occultum lapidem, the hidden stone, seen by some to represent the attainment of all wisdom. However, the acknowledgement of hermaphrodite or androgyne deities may be seen to be relatively rare within occult circles today. The most well-known example of the divine androgyne today is perhaps the Baphomet, as depicted famously by Eliphas Levi. The worship of the white and black goat gods, however, was widespread amongst witches worldwide, and the goat image remains central to many craft traditions today, although the true meaning behind the light betwixt the horns has been largely forgotten. So do bear that in mind. The light betwixt the horns, there's a lot of representation and symbolism there. The 2 horns are considered to be the opposing or the opposites, the light and the dark, masculine and feminine, life and death, etc. And the flame betwixt the horns, between them, is that union of the opposites. So it's the triplicity. And we'll always come back to 3, as we know. But also the light betwixt the horn is all wisdom, it's all knowledge, it is the illumination of the path. So the horn god with the light betwixt the horns is the illuminator of the path, is the Lucifer, is the bringer of light, the light bringer. And this light that we talk about is knowledge, gnosis, wisdom, and therefore that light, that god, Bucca, Pan, Baphomet, they are the Lucifer. They are the bringer of knowledge, the bringer of wisdom, the bringer of gnosis, and the light illuminates the path. But the light is that union, that bringing together of all things, in order to bring that gnosis and bring that knowledge and wisdom. But I think, we live in a world that has become trying to force separation, trying to force these dualities to take place. and separate things, even separate ourselves from the divine, that we become so used to it that we forget about the union of everything and the bringing together and the oneness of all things, that we just completely forget about this. But I'm going to stop rambling. Okay, so that's it. That's what I wanted to really mention today and talk about. I thought the chapter was absolutely brilliant. I think the book is absolutely brilliant, so if you do get a chance to read it, definitely read it. Just to repeat, it is Gemma Gary's Traditional Witchcraft, a Cornish Book of Ways. Okay, and I'm sure I did put up an image somewhere along the line, so you can see the book's cover. Alright, so that's it for now. Have a good one, and cheers. Bye bye.